views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening, everyone. I want to say good evening and welcome to the District 9 community. Our Chancellor, Richard Carranza, our Executive Superintendent, Misha Ross-Porter, our Community Educational Council, and our President Council members. I know that our Chancellor and Executive Superintendent are vested in lifting the voices of our rich community to ensure that our concerns, needs, and experiences inform the policies and the decisions made across the city. They truly work and fight to dismantle the inequities faced by our community on a daily basis. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I am very excited to get started.
Thank you, Superintendent. Now I will turn it over to the President of Community Education Council, Ms. Aide Zanos, to say a few words, and I'll just note that Ms. Zanos will say her opening statement in Spanish, and then I will read it in English afterwards. So, Aide, your line is unmuted.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a nuestro ayuntamiento del Distrito 9. Bienvenida Superintendente Misha Porter, Leticia Rosario y su equipo del distrito. Bienvenidos principales, coordinadores, padres y estudiantes, familias de nuestro Distrito 9. Bienvenido sea Canciller Richard Carranza. Es un placer recibirlo en nuestro distrito. Agradecemos que nos brinde un espacio en su agenda. Nuestro distrito ha sufrido muchos cambios durante esta contingencia en comparación con otros distritos y es necesario obtener el apoyo suficiente y satisfacer las necesidades de los estudiantes y de nuestras familias. Contamos con un alto porcentaje de estudiantes de habla hispana y algunos otros idiomas más. Y sabiendo esto, estamos enfocados en la equidad y justicia social para todos los estudiantes. Sabemos que todos debemos de tener las mismas oportunidades para desarrollar las habilidades de los estudiantes e involucrar a los padres y trabajar por un bien común. Sabiendo todo esto, debemos de enfrentar y buscar la solución a la falta de comunicación, de interpretación en varios idiomas, la falta de involucramiento de los padres, derechos de igualdad, de equidad y proveer la información oportuna y lo más clara posible. Gracias por escuchar las inquietudes de nuestro distrito. Esperamos contar con todo su apoyo y lograr una unidad y cubrir todas las expectativas de los estudiantes y de nuestras familias de nuestro distrito. Muchas gracias y bienvenido a nuestro distrito.
Thank you, Madam President. Now I'll read your statement in English. Welcome to CEC9's Town Hall. Welcome Superintendent Misha Ross-Porter, Leticia Rodriguez Rosario, and her district team. Welcome principals, parents, students, and parent coordinators from District 9. Welcome Chancellor Richard Carranza. It is a pleasure to receive you in our district. We appreciate you providing us with a space on your agenda. Our district has suffered many changes during this contingency in comparison to other districts. It is necessary to obtain support and meet the needs of students and families. We have a high percentage of Spanish-speaking students among many other languages with this in mind. We are very focused on equity and social justice for all our students because we know that we all have the same opportunities to develop student skills, involve parents, and work for the common good. We will seek solutions and address the lack of communication, lack of interpretation for various languages represented in our district, as well as the lack of parental involvement, equal rights, equity, and will continue to work to provide clear and timely information. Thank you for listening to the questions from our district. We look forward to your support, achieving unity, and meeting the expectations of students and parents. And with that said, I will now turn it over to our Chancellor, Chancellor Carranza.
Primeramente quiero decir que, señora Presidente Aire Zainos Flores, muchísimo gusto y gracias por la bienvenida. I want to say to our President, CEC, Aire Zainos Flores, thank you for the welcome and thank you for allowing me
¿Quiere escuchar, viejo? Ay,
some time here with the community. It's a real honor to be here. I also want to recognize our Superintendent, Leticia Rodriguez Rosario, who is one of our superstar superintendents in the entire DOE. And I really want to thank her for her hard work, not only during the COVID pandemic, but what she's done since I got here to really uplift the work that's happening to serve our students. And of course, our Executive Superintendent, Misha Ross Porter. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening in District 9. I have a very, very special place in my heart for District 9. And before I say anything else, I just want to say to the residents of District 9, I understand and I know that you have been disproportionately impacted by the effects of COVID-19. And I want to say to you that this is an example of what I've been talking about since I arrived, the historic underservice of some certain communities in our city. This is another example of the disproportionate impact of underfunding, of underrepresentation, of undersupport. And you have my commitment that we will continue to fight to make sure that communities like CEC 9, District 9, get the resources and the support and get to the front of the line to be able to get the support that they need, because we all want to do well by our children. So last year, I just want to say, was nothing like we could have ever imagined. I want to acknowledge what we all know to be true, that March was extremely challenging for all of us. Our entire city, doctors and scientists included, were learning about this disease in real time, often learning new things every day. The shift to remote learning happening at the same time was an enormously challenging and heavy lift for us. But I'm so proud of the way everyone responded during the crisis that no one ever imagined happening or saw coming. The resilience of our families, our students, and our educators has been nothing short of remarkable. And we've learned an incredible amount since then. And we will all work together towards reopening schools. And we're committed to building on the lessons learned and basing our policies on the expertise of the health professionals. I've been quoted recently as saying, we are going to depend on the science, not science fiction. And that's our commitment, that safety will be our #1 priority. And at the same time, we know that students learn best when they can interact directly with caring, well-trained teachers in a classroom environment. I just want to say that on a weekly basis, I interact with my colleagues, the leaders of the 10 largest school systems in America. And I will tell you that 2 weeks ago, of the 10 largest school systems in America, there were only 2 that were even in a place that could consider in-person learning in the fall. That was Chicago and New York. Chicago being the 3rd largest, New York being the largest in America. This week, as we speak, there's only 1, and that's New York City, because Chicago has seen an uptick in the number of positive COVID cases, while New York is continuing to hover way below the threshold of 5% positive. We are hovering between 1% and 2%, which is an incredible testament to all of you and all of us who have not politicized the wearing of masks, that have stayed home, that have washed our hands, that have socially distanced. We haven't gathered in large crowds. Because of that, it makes it possible for us to even consider in-person learning. But I will tell you, we will never sacrifice the health and the safety of our students, our teachers, our principals, our communities, our families, for the sake of just reopening. We will do this safely. So our plans for the fall provide that all New York City students will be learning 5 days a week. And the only difference is going to be whether that will be in person in a school or at home. But regardless of even if students are learning in person in a school, there will be some of those days that it will be remote learning. And that way we can assure that there is a safe social distancing in our buildings. because we can't serve all 100% of our students at any given time in our buildings. And this is especially true in CEC and District 9, because we know that our buildings are very crowded and have a lot of students. So any family can choose an all remote learning experience for any reason. And those families will learn just as much as the students that are in person. They will be part of their school community. They will be taught to the greatest extent possible by teachers from that school. And families can choose, when they choose an all remote learning, you can learn more about what that means between remote learning and blended learning on our website. And our website are schools.nyc.gov. And if you choose an all remote learning experience for your child, we ask that you let us know by August 7th, so our schools have enough time to plan. And with our guidance, each school is in the process of making decisions about how to carry out blended learning. And you're going to be hearing more details about blended learning from your school later in August. But I will tell you that all schools and school principals are working very hard to make sure that we're serving the students in the greatest amount of time possible in an in-school learning environment while maintaining health and safety for all of our students. So speaking of health, I want to quickly focus on health protocols for a moment. In our school communities, we will educate and enforce social distancing, wearing of face coverings, hand hygiene, and staying home if you're sick. This is going to be critically important for everyone because we've only been able to get to this point by following those particular guidelines. We will also ensure that there are enhanced disinfecting protocols, ventilation checks, and signage and floor markings throughout school buildings to ensure that the health and safety of students is first and foremost. So there will be hallways where you can only go in one direction, and then there will be markers on the floor that say, stand here and then move there, because this is 6 feet of distancing between students. We will use electrostatic disinfectors every night to disinfect every student, every classroom, and every school. There will be people walking around the entire day with spray bottles of disinfectant and rags, wiping down doorknobs, wiping down handrails, wiping down doors, because we know from our experience with the regional education centers that that was very effective for us. We are also going to ensure that every school will have access to medical professionals and a highly trained borough response team ready to respond in the event that there is a health concern in a school. We also know that low levels of community transition and widely available access to testing and a strong contact tracing and quarantine system are essential to being able to manage this pandemic. So again, health and safety will be first and foremost. So today, these are the next steps. Today, we posted a great deal of information about these last points, testing and tracing, on our website. We have worked tirelessly with our colleagues at Test and Trace and the Department of Health to build the most robust and exacting approach to protecting the health and safety of our school community. In fact, I will be very honest, we are going beyond what the recommendations are from the state and from the state health department. We're being much more conservative because we want to make sure that our students and our communities and our educators are healthy and safe in school communities. So I want to encourage you to visit schools.nyc.gov for information on how testing and tracing protocols in schools will work. And in the meantime, I know you have lots of questions about how September will look like in District 9, and I'm happy to be here to answer them. And I also know that Superintendent Rosario will be hosting a District 9 town hall on back to school models on August 3rd from 5 to 6 p.m. via Zoom. Now, one reminder, despite all of the change and uncertainty, one thing never changes. Your health and safety and the safety of our students and staff and the academic excellence of every student remain our highest priority. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jesse Mojica, who's going to lead us through the questions. Again, I want to thank you for being here this evening, and I look forward to answering whatever questions you may have this evening. Jesse.
Thank you, Chancellor. Just wanted to also take a moment at tonight's town hall to say that tonight's town hall is being broadcast live via BronxNet. So we thank everyone at BronxNet for broadcasting tonight's town hall live on Channel 70 on BronxNet. So now we will transition to questions. So we will have a couple of questions initially from the members of the council, and then we'll open up the public comment portion of the evening. So I turn it over to the members of the council so they can ask their questions.
Sí, está bien. Vamos a hacer nuestra primera pregunta.
Yes, sure. Now we're gonna do our first question.
El Distrito 9 se caracteriza por tener varios edificios que albergan 2 o más escuelas, lo que dificulta el distanciamiento social. Dado al nuevo protocolo para regresar a las escuelas, ¿cómo abordaremos las posibilidades de contagio en un edificio escolar? Y especialmente si una gran cantidad de escuelas en nuestro distrito no tienen los baños y los grifos funcionando.
I can actually, I have that question in English, so I can state it. So District 9 has a number of buildings that house 2 or more schools, which make it very difficult to social distance. Given the new protocol for returning to schools, how will we address the possibilities of contagions in a school building, especially if a large number of schools in our district don't have working bathrooms or faucets?
So part of the safety and health protocols that I was talking about is that as we speak, there are renovations and upgrades that are being done to every ventilation system in every one of our schools. And obviously we know that in the Bronx, there are a number of schools that need those upgrades first and foremost. They've been first on the list. In addition, our school construction authority, along with our facilities department, is working to make sure that we have functioning hand washing stations, water fountains, and that we've already ordered all of the disinfectant and disinfectant wipes and disinfectant materials so that we can deliver to schools. And our goal is to have a 30-day supply in every school every day. So as schools are using those disinfectant supplies to disinfect their schools, we're going to be replacing them just in time to always make sure they always have a 30-day supply so they never run without. Now, we also understand that there are a number of schools that are co-located. Just today, we announced and we communicated to, for example, some of the co-located charter schools who wanted to come early into our buildings, that they will not come into our buildings before our buildings come into their buildings. Now that's important because we are also facilitating those conversations amongst principals with multiple schools within a building to make sure everybody is on the same page around how do students enter, where do they enter, what are the one-way hallways. So gone are going to be the days where one school says this is my territory and another school says this is my territory. No. Papa Carranza is going to say you will all work together and make sure that you have one plan and that you look at how the school in its entirety, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 schools, are following these protocols based on the health and the safety. In addition, we are working through the protocols around temperature checking, personal protection, which means masks, la tapacaras, hand washing, social distancing, creating additional classroom spaces so that we're able to spread students out. And again, our superintendent, Rodriguez Rosario, has been just a leader in this work, working with principals to make sure we're navigating all those conversations. Now, I believe in innovation. I believe that principals and communities should have a say in how their schools are run. But I'm also going to be the first one to tell you right now, we are in a global pandemic that has killed over 150,000 people in the United States. So that means in New York City, there are going to be some things that in the past where schools had the ability to decide because of health and safety, because of keeping students and staff safe, they will not have the ability to decide it. We're going to tell them what they're going to do. Again, not because we want to take away the ability to decide, but because we know, talking to the medical experts, the epidemiologists, the Department of Health, Dr. Fauci, that these are the best practices for ensuring the safety of our students in school communities. We are also working through right now what the protocol will be. What if there is a positive case in a school? What do we do? That information will be coming very quickly from the mayor and I within a matter of days. What happens if there's more than one case of positive COVID transmission in a school? What happens then? You will get very specific information about that. So there is more and more information that will be coming to you. But again, the health and the safety of our students and our staff and our community will make it very, very possible for us to say there are certain things that schools used to be able to decide that they will no longer be able to decide, because we want to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe.
Thank you, Chancellor. I believe the next question will be from First Vice President Maribel Gonzalez. Ms. Gonzalez?
Good evening, everyone. This is a question for parent involvement. What would parent involvement look like in our schools with COVID-19 as we look to open in the coming weeks? Will parents be able to volunteer, assist with morning lineups, have access to school main office? Is there are emergency situations pertaining to their child, as well as participate in SLT and PA meetings?
Yes, so yes, and yes. So the reason we've asked principals to really coordinate with our ILTs, our SLTs, and our parent community is because we know, and especially in District 9, there are very involved and active parents. So if you think about the fact that as students are entering the school building, we're taking temperatures, for example. That doesn't have to be done by a trained nurse. That could be done by parent volunteers, as long as those parent volunteers are not exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19. So there will be an opportunity for parents to step up and say, I'm willing to help, and this is how I can help. And we're asking principals to engage our parent community so that we can engage our parents in that particular way as well. Now, the other thing that I think is important is that despite our best intentions, we know that parents communicate with parents in a much more effective way than schools or a district can, because you have those communication groups. So we want to be as transparent as possible around giving information to parents and parent leaders and parent groups so that they themselves, en la charla, right, en el discurso en la comunidad, so our parent groups can share real information, not urban myth. And I think that's really important for us because we want to leverage the value of those communication modules for parents to be able to share that information. There will also be some very specific training that will be happening with our school communities around what happens if there is a suspected. So a student is walking into the school, they get their temperature checked, they happen to have a little bit higher temperature than what is normal, they go to an isolation room. So who mans the isolation room until the parent can come and pick up that child, or the child can get to a doctor? What are the protocols? What are the PPE? What are the face masks look like? What do the disinfectant looks like? In all of those situations, parents can be an incredible asset to helping us make sure that we're keeping our students and our staff safe in our school environments. So my long-winded answer to your very simple question is yes. We are not only welcoming, but we're depending on parents to be our partners as we go forward with in-person learning.
Thank you, Chancellor. And Maribel, I believe you have the next question as well.
Yes, okay. Our next question is containing for IEP students. Our IEP students require many services. How will they continue to receive their much-needed therapy as well as receiving continued assistance from their paraprofessionals if they opt for remote learning? Our district has many students in temporary housing. What will support look like for these parents and students?
Yes, so our students with individual education plans, our IEP students, have priority. So that means that they're being prioritized for in-person instruction. Obviously, the more needs that our students have in terms of occupational therapy, physical therapy, some of our more severely impacted students, there's a priority for services for them as well. So that will continue to be the approach that we take in terms of meeting the needs of our students. Some of our D75 schools, because they have less numbers of students, are able to have a model where they can serve all of their students 5 days a week. That's not possible in all the schools, but in the schools that it's possible, we are supporting them in being able to do that. For the students that choose a remote learning environment, we are also working with schools to be able to provide that therapy for students, similar to what we've been able to do the latter part of this spring semester. We got better at it than we were in March, because we had to transition so quickly in March. But we've learned a lot of lessons. There's a lot of things that we're doing in summer school now that'll carry over to the fall semester as well. You also mentioned students in temporary housing. So we have continued, and we're very thankful to our city council for securing our Shepherd program, Good Shepherd program, which means that we will continue to have social workers that will be able to provide supports to our students in temporary housing. We also have continued to work with our internet companies to make sure that our students in our temporary housing, in our housing facilities, have internet access. So if they choose, or even if they don't choose fully remote, they're going to have some remote learning that'll be part of their week. They can continue to stay connected. So again, through all of this portfolio of imperfect choices that we have to make, and let me be honest, there are no perfect choices here that will meet the needs of everyone. These are really a portfolio of imperfect choices. But within that portfolio of imperfect choices, we want to make sure that we're prioritizing from an equity perspective those students and communities that have the greatest needs and that will allow us to serve them in the most direct way possible as we go forward in this fall semester.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you, members of the council, for your questions. Now we're transitioning to the public question portion of the meeting for the general public. We have taken a list of everyone who signed up to speak and created a random speaking order, giving priority to District 9 residents and those who require Spanish, Mandarin, or French interpretation. The speaking order of the next 5 people to speak will be on the screen. I will call your name and you will be unmuted. Everyone has 1.5 minutes, and you will see a timer on your screen that will show you how much time you have left. So the first speaker we have for tonight is actually a student, Abrima Sankarai, and my apologies if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Abrima, you are unmuted. Abrima, can you hear me? Abrima, can you hear us? Okay, we'll go back to Abrima. Okay, next person is Antonio Jordan. Mr. Jordan, you are unmuted. Mr. Jordan, can you hear us? Okay, we'll come back to Mr. Jordan. Next speaker is Deandra Crane.
Hello?
Is this Deandra? Hello, is this Deandra, Ms. Crane?
This is Mr. Jordan.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Jordan. Yes, Mr. Jordan, you're unmuted. You can speak.
Hi, I'm Mr. Jordan. I am a product of District 9. I also work in District 9. And thank you, Mr. Chancellor, for doing the excellent work that you're doing. I would just like to know, for those schools who will experience or potentially shortage of teachers to be in front of our children due to these doctor recommendations, what would be the plan to address that need?
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. So there's a number of things that we're working through. So we've now launched a portal where any employee that has underlying medical conditions or other factors that would prohibit them from coming to an in-person learning environment can apply for an accommodation. And we've set a deadline for August 7th for them to be able to apply for an accommodation. Now, the reason we're doing that is that we need to get a sense of how many of our employees, our teachers, our paras, our principals, etc., have a need for an accommodation, which will then tell us how many of those individuals will be in a remote learning environment and how many people will we have for an in-person learning environment. And your question is very, very insightful, because if you usually have a classroom of 25 to 30 students and the social distancing guidelines say you can't have more than 9 to 12, depending on how big your classroom is, then obviously if you have 9 students in a class, what happens to the rest of the students? Well, you need a teacher. So the other thing that we're doing, aside from understanding how many people we will have available for in-person learning, is that there are a number of personnel in the DOE that have teaching credentials, that are teachers, and that are now doing other very important roles. They work in our borough offices as literacy coaches. They work as early literacy transition coaches. They work as master teachers, coaching other teachers. They are administrators that have been teachers. So what we are doing is identifying who all of those people are, and identifying, is it possible, if push comes to shove, if we can redirect their time to be in a classroom rather than doing the very important work that they're doing. But remember, we're in a pandemic. This is a crisis. We have to be focused on what are we doing to support students in school environments. So we're doing that analysis as well. I saw there was some chatter as well earlier about some folks were saying, I got an unsolicited email from the Department of Education asking me if I would be interested in being a substitute teacher, and I never applied. You're darn right. Because if you've ever expressed an interest in being a substitute teacher, that means that you've already gone through the process, you've expressed an interest, we're reaching out to you. And you haven't asked us to reach out to you, but we're reaching out to you. Hey, are you interested still? Because we probably could use your skills in being in a classroom helping with the teaching of our students. We are also working very closely with CUNY, because they have a number of students that are education majors, and this could be an excellent opportunity for students that have already expressed an interest. They're studying to be teachers, and we can fast track their student teaching by actually paying them to be teachers and doing their student teaching at the same time, while helping us to maintain the social distancing numbers that are required to keep people safe. So those are just but 4 of a number of things that we're doing to make sure we're going to have the people and the personnel that we need to be in the classroom with the students that have chosen for an in-person learning experience.
Thank you, Chancellor. Our next speaker is Deandra Crane. Deandra, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Hi, how everyone?
Hi there.
Hi. My question is that, you know, for myself, I'm a single parent of 4 boys, and I've walked away from a $50,000 job that I was doing, and I worked through the whole COVID situation. I was wearing 3 hats, and it began to be overwhelming for myself, which, you know, it became harder to maintain my home as well. I was tired, and this is during the whole summertime, coming towards the summer ending, with the whole schoolwork, making sure my kids pass their grade, you know. So my main thing is now, I took a pay cut, and I felt like, you know, with this whole COVID thing is just going on, maybe I need to start minimizing my time at work. And I started looking for another job, part-time, just to be home with my children. And my main thing is just, you know, how are the single parents category is going to benefit from this and try to uphold a household and bring in financial within the home, you know, because we don't want to struggle as well.
So Deandra, my heart goes out to you, and I have tremendous empathy for you. I mean, you were thrust into the role of being an adjunct teacher to your children. And the economic, you know, we're dealing with 3 pandemics. We're dealing with the viral pandemic, which is COVID-19. We're dealing with the economic pandemic that is associated with COVID-19. And we're also dealing with a racial reckoning that's a pandemic worldwide about how we treat certain people and communities in America. That's resonated not only across the country, but across the world. So we are definitely in uncharted territory, and I just have tremendous empathy for you. One of the things that we try to really solve for while keeping health and safety at the forefront is to have some modicum of dependability for parents just like you. So although it's not perfect, and remember I said we're choosing from a portfolio of imperfect solutions, but if you know that your children will be in-person learning in schools on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you know that Mondays, they will 1 week be in school on Monday, the next week they'll be remote learning on Monday, but that you know every Monday, every Tuesday and Wednesday, they will be in school. Every Thursday and Friday, they will definitely be in remote learning. The mayor—
But that's the thing. That's the thing, you know, because for myself, I took a part-time job just to make sure that my kids are getting the actual education that they need, because the education actually comes from home first.
So yes. So as I was going to say, the mayor has announced and mobilized city agencies to provide 100,000 seats for childcare. Now, what that is about is in a situation like yours, if you know your children are in school Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, alternating on Monday, Thursday, and Friday, but you know that on that alternate Monday and that Thursday and Friday, there's a community-based organization where your children can go do their remote learning there and have supervision. That gives you some semblance of being able to go out and find that job. And also, the mayor and I have met with hundreds of employers and the employee, the Chamber of Commerce, imploring our employers to be flexible as we start really inching up how we're opening our city, and the schools being a critical part of that, and asking them for flexibility for parents just like you that are going to need some flexibility through no fault of yours, but because of the fact that COVID-19 is still in our communities, and that until we get a vaccine, things will not go back to normal. So we're really trying to provide those kinds of supports for parents just like you that could have some semblance of a dependability of knowing when your children will be in school and when they can be in a community-based organization doing their remote learning, to give you some sense of security to be able to go out and again, re-engage in the economy. Again, not perfect, lots of unknowns, but that is what we're working towards, and that is at the forefront of what we're trying to do to support all of our working parents who, listen, I get it, have to go back to work.
Thank you, Chancellor. Our next speaker is Josephine Melendez. Ms. Melendez, you are muted. Ms. Melendez? Okay, we'll go to our next speaker, Ms. Lindsay Colon. Ms. Colon, you are muted.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a teacher in District 9 and also a parent of 2 children in District 4. And earlier I did hear Chancellor Carranza speak about the updating of the ventilation systems, etc. I'm curious as to whether specific information about our schools will become public. For example, I'd like to know that my classroom has been checked, that the windows all open, and that the air conditioner, the ventilation system has been updated. I would also like to know that that has been done with every single classroom in my building and in the classrooms in my children's schools. Ideally, there would be some sort of spreadsheet that I could look at and it would show me this information. Have you thought about making this public? And if I could just add on one more question, when will we be able to sign up for these childcare positions? Because I will definitely need some place for my children to go each day that I'm in my school. Thank you so much.
So Lindsay, thank you very much for your service. Along with parents who have been thrust into the role of adjunct teachers, I can't thank you and your fellow teachers for pivoting so quickly to remote learning, taking on the challenges, working through the development of resources and strategies and platforms. So thank you for what you do. So yes, our goal is to be very transparent as that work is going on right now. Remember, September 10th is our goal for the opening of schools. So before September, Before the start of September, our goal is to be able to have that very public and transparent so that every school community knows what's been upgraded, what's been done, and what's been done to keep every classroom not only upgraded, but safe. So that is in fact our goal. Now, in terms of the childcare, there are a number of city agencies, community-based organizations that are, as we speak, identifying locations, identifying organizations that will be able to provide this kind of childcare. We are looking at being able to have some process for being able to sign up for that by the end of August at the latest, hopefully earlier than that. And it looks a lot of different ways. I mean, our public libraries have stepped up in a really big way to say we have some spaces. How do we staff those spaces? Our community-based organizations have stepped up in a very big way. I'm sure you've heard that Google just announced that they will continue their work from home policy until July of 2021. So that creates an opportunity now. Google and other industry partners that have work from home policies allows us to engage with them on, well, if we can lease your space and create these learning centers that would be part of the child care center model, then what would that look like? So we're in the middle of those conversations right now. But that gives you an idea of how complex it is across the city of New York. And we also want to make sure that it's geographically representative so that we have in all 5 boroughs options for parents, because it makes no sense if you're working and living in the Bronx that you have to take your child to a child care center that's in Queens or that's on Staten Island or in Manhattan. Well, you might as well not have an option, because then it's not an option for you. So we're trying to be very, very thoughtful and strategic to make sure that parents have actual options in the boroughs that they work in or they live in that will be helpful to them and still allow them to do the essential work that they do. The other thing that I'm advocating for as well is that teachers and our principals are essential workers. So that means that in terms of priority for these seats, you get priority for that, because if you can't have childcare for your children, then how can you serve the children of our city? So again, all of those things are in very active work as we speak.
Thank you, Chancellor. Our next speaker is Ms. Grisel Cardona. Grisel, you are unmuted.
Hey, Richard Carranza. Thank you for coming to District 9. You're the best. So here's my question. Due to the budget cuts, like community schools, and while having a huge number of students in temporary housing in District 9, how can we be certain that each student will be receiving not only daily adequate PPE, but as well as the necessary supplies for their education? As you know, we do have students with language access issues, special education, OT materials, materials for speech and physical education. Can't forget about that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so Grisel, I just want to say to you, thank you for being the fierce advocate for equity for all of our students that you are. I am just I never cease to be amazed at how strong your voice is out there pushing back against those that don't believe in equity. So I just want to say to you, gracias. Thank you for what you do. So what we've done is in the DOE, we're facing $1 billion in cuts, but that means that in a time of crisis, which this pandemic is a time of crisis, and the economic pandemic is also a time of crisis, we are going through a process right now where we're going to stop doing some things. Things that are important, things that add value to a large system like ours. But the focus right now is very squarely on how are we serving our students in our school communities, whether that's in person or virtually, and then how are we channeling resources from things that we used to do. There are good things to do, but right now the focus is serving students directly in terms of the instructional program. So there are some things we're going to stop doing, and I'm redirecting resources in that direction. At the same time, we're advocating very strongly at the state and federal level around stimulus package. At the state level, the governor has been very clear that absent a stimulus package from the federal government, he's going to make more cuts to the state budget, which will include K-12 education. I think this is a great opportunity for parents and parent advocates to really raise your voices to say, you can't cut us anymore and expect us to have health and safety and robust learning for our students. Not even robust learning, just learning for our students. So the advocacy is going to be very important as we go forward. But the other thing that I would say is that in my almost daily and sometimes hourly conversations with the mayor has been very resolute with every agency that we will spare no expense at the detriment of other things that we do to make sure that we have health and safety for our students in our schools as we look to go to in-person learning. You cannot transition and reopen New York City without having a robust, safe environment in our schools for parents to feel safe that their students are being not only well educated, but are being supported in a safe environment. So I am very heartened by the fact that the mayor has continued to say that in every meeting that I'm in. Obviously, the city having taken a $9 billion cut, he's robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I appreciate that, and I'll continue to be an ally in making sure that that happens. Now, the note on community schools is I am a big believer and a big supporter of community schools. There is no finer intervention and strategy that I have ever seen anywhere I've served. When I served in New York City or San Francisco or in Houston and now in New York City, community schools have always been a game changer in serving our communities, especially our most historically underserved communities. So we are working very closely with City Hall, and I know that the City Council is very interested in revisiting the budget around restoring those cuts to community schools. I am very much in support of that and have been very vocal that I am supportive of restoring whatever has been cut from community schools, because I think it's just an invaluable strategy for leveling and, quite frankly, from an equity perspective, empowering communities that have historically been underserved. So all of that is happening as we speak, and that's my commitment to making sure that we continue to make that happen.
Our next speaker is Vanessa Disla. Vanessa, you are unmuted.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, thank you so much, Counselor. My concern is because I have two kids at home, and when I was applying for middle school with the little one, now they moved her to another school that is not the oldest one. They're in different school. As a mom who works, it's really hard for me now with the COVID and all that stuff to take them to different schools, maybe different days also. How they gonna work with, is any possibility that the kids can relocate her with all that stuff with the COVID?
Yes, so Vanessa, great question. So what I would encourage you to do is this, and we have our district superintendent, Rodriguez Rosario, that's on the phone call as well. What I would encourage you to do is, number one, the school in which your child is in, that you want your other child to be in, I would encourage you to reach out to that school principal and make sure that that principal understands that because you are a working parent, you really do have a need for your two children to be in the same school and on the same schedule. And as we've worked with principals, we've asked principals to be as flexible as they can be around accommodating those kinds of situations. And then what I'm going to ask our superintendent, Rodriguez Rosario, and I'm not sure if Leticia wants to also say a few words, I would welcome her to do that.
Yes.
We'll have our superintendent also reach out to our enrollment office and make sure that this is one of those issues that is a special issue which always pertains to being able to accommodate our working parents. Superintendent Rodriguez Rosario, did you want to add anything?
Yes, absolutely. So we're here to support you in whatever way we can. I'm going to ask that you we're going to make sure that you have our contact information in order to gather the information that we need to see how we can support. I will work with the borough office and enrollment office to see what can be done to support you at this time.
Chancellor, can I just add one point to that as well?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you? Good evening, everyone. And I know our superintendent does it well as well. each of our schools to have a point specifically for enrollment, because we know that there are going to be very specific issues that schools have. So if you are directly in contact with your superintendent, she can also make sure you are in contact with the enrollment point at your school, at the school you are looking into.
Thank you, Executive Superintendent Ross Porter. That's a great point. And again, what we're trying to do is simplify the process for our parents, because we know it's very complex and there's a lot of moving parts. So, and I love what Superintendent Rodriguez Rosario said, estamos aquí para servir. We're here to serve. So just make sure we connect and we'll work with you.
So I'm going to ask Yadira to just put her information on the chat so that the parent can have it, and any parent on this call that may need it, so that we can make sure that we connect.
Thank you, everyone. So the next speaker is Miss Sienna Chambers. Miss Chambers, you are muted.
Yes, good evening, Chancellor, parents, other educators. My name is Sienna Chambers. I am a teacher in District 9. What I am most concerned by, not only the safety of my students, my colleagues and parents, and also the community, regardless of the structure or schedule that schools provide, each student will still be experiencing remote learning, and there seems to be an extreme lack of preparation personally in terms of what teachers are receiving in terms of professional development to improve remote learning. Chancellor, you indicated that, teachers were very flexible in terms of making their classrooms digital. However, there has been a lack of professional development in terms of trying to improve remote learning. So, as professionals, so we were in the trenches and we were trying to figure out how to best access our students. However, this is going to be a whole new school year. And for those of us who choose, because of health concerns, to do remote learning full time, how do we create connections with our students, digitally? How do we address their social emotional needs? How do we also teach through a racial and equity lens? And a lot of the conversation, even tonight, and rightfully so, has been on opening schools and make sure that we're doing so in a safe manner, but we're not talking about also what are we doing to improve remote learning.
Yeah, so Sienna, I just want to say to you personally, thank you for your service. I know it wasn't easy, and I know it hasn't been easy, and I want to thank you for your service. It's a coming. So we had a decision to make. Now think about this. And again, I'm not gonna say who made us do this, but it just wasn't us. We had to give up our spring break this year, and we had to teach through our spring break. That wasn't a decision that was made in New York City. And I'm very cognizant of the fact, because I remember as a teacher, those little breaks that you get to just recharge, rejuvenate, because you give everything. You literally leave it on the field every day serving our students. We didn't get that this year. So we had to make a decision. Do we now ask teachers to give us their summer for professional development sessions, or do we let teachers actually catch their breath, reconnect, take some time to rejuvenate, and then we come back in the fall and preload some days of professional development? We chose the latter. So it's a coming. And we've been hard at work, actually gathering from teacher feedback groups and teachers that have done remote learning very, very effectively, working with UFT, a big team from UFT, various focus groups of teachers, various focus groups of principals, and CSA, a really robust professional development, I would say, portfolio that we're going to launch at the beginning of the school year to really help teachers understand all of the resources they have, make it as simple as possible to set up the remote classrooms, really make it as simple as possible to identify resources, give you one-click access instead of multiple clicking. You'll be able to go to one place and have an LMS and have the materials that you need. That's coming for the fall. And every day it gets better and better. We're going to be ready to launch that. So I know it feels like, well, I haven't gotten anything yet. Listen, it was a conscious decision. I'm going to own it. I said, give teachers a minute to breathe. And in the meantime, continue to develop a really robust professional development series so teachers have everything they need, but is also differentiated, because we know that some teachers are at step 1 of remote learning, so they have certain needs, and other teachers are at step 10 and could teach us a thing or two. So how do we create that continuum to meet the needs of our professionals and treat them like the professionals that they are? So it's a coming. I hear you. I promise you're going to get what you need when you need it as we start getting towards the start of September.
Thank you, Chancellor. So we're approaching getting close to the end of our town hall, and our last several questions will be from parents in our interpretation rooms. So ladies and gentlemen, there may be a pause of silence while the interpreter receives the question from the parent and then says it to us. So next person to speak is Cruz Arias. Cruz, you are muted.
Sí.
Señora Cruz, está en la sala de Zoom, la podemos escuchar.
Sí, saludo a todos. Mi pregunta es, los niños que van a recibir clases online, ¿tendrán un maestro por cada materia? ¿Y cómo manejarían la limpieza y el distanciamiento en la escuela? Gracias.
Yes, my question is in regards to the kids. Are they going to have one teacher per every subject? And how are you going to be managing the social distancing and the cleaning in the schools?
So, señora Cruz, muchas gracias por la pregunta. Voy a contestar en inglés y luego la traducción la voy a hacer en español.
Okay.
No quiero que piense que le estoy faltando respeto. Gracias por la pregunta. It's going to depend on grade levels. So in elementary schools, they will have a teacher from their school that will conduct the remote learning. It's going to look a little different in different schools based on how many teachers they have in person and how many teachers are in remote learning. But at a minimum, the teachers will all be working together almost in teams to make sure that a third grade student is learning the same material, the same pacing as a third grade student that's in person. And think about it, if a student is in person for a portion of the week, and then they're in remote learning for a portion of the week, they all have to be coordinated so that they continue to progress at the same time. So the answer is yes. At the high school level or at the middle school level where you have different teachers for different subject areas, the thinking is that students will have the same teacher that will teach them remotely, and then another teacher that will teach them in person, but those two teachers will be working together in unison around making sure that they are aligned with what students are learning. So again, as much consistency as we can based on all of the factors, that's our goal, to make sure that they have consistency and that students feel like they're part of the school even when they're in remote learning mode. Now, in terms of cleanliness, we are going to have electrostatic cleaning every night. So that means every school will be disinfected and deeply cleaned every single night. Students will have temperatures taken. There's conversations about will those temperatures be taken at home, and then parents certify they took their child's temperature. If that's the case, obviously we'll provide thermometers for parents to make sure they take the temperature, but they will also be taken at schools. There will be personal protection equipment, the face coverings. There will be, in some cases, face shields. We're also looking at how we're going to accommodate desks and the ventilation so that we have the best possible scenario so that there's no spread. We also will have people that will be walking around schools all day long with a bottle of disinfectant and a rag, cleaning doorknobs, cleaning handrails, disinfecting everywhere they go. Students will stay in groups as much as possible so that, God forbid, there is a positive case, then our trace and test detectives know who those students have been interacting with on a daily basis. There will also be some random testing that will happen in every school that students and staff will be able to opt into. So again, all of this will be part of the protocols for safety in-person learning in our school buildings.
Thank you, Chancellor. Next question will be from Ms. Rosa Peña. Ms. Peña, you are unmuted.
Okay, so I'm going to say the question in Spanish first, so those that speak Spanish can hear the question in the original language, and then I will translate it into English. Bueno, mi pregunta es, y no es, muchas de mis preguntas ya han sido contestadas, pero la pregunta que tengo es que yo tengo un estudiante que recibe terapia de habla y me gustaría saber cuántos días mi estudiante va a poder asistir a la escuela, ya que él depende de sus servicios y pues yo tengo que trabajar. Yo he trabajado durante la pandemia y ha sido muy difícil para mí. He tenido que contar con miembros de mi familia para que puedan cuidar de estos niños y se me hace bastante difícil. Y no es que yo no crea en el aprendizaje virtual, está muy bien, pero pues es mucho mejor el aprendizaje en persona. Entonces, sí, esa es mi pregunta. ¿Cuántos días va a poder asistir mi estudiante a la escuela? My question, many of my questions had been answered already. But I do have a question about my student. I have a student that receives speech therapy, and I'm wondering how many days my student is going to be able to assist to in-person class.
I'll be with you in just a minute.
I have to work during the pandemic times, and it's been very, very difficult for me. I have to use, many family members have helped me to take care of the kids, but it's been very difficult. And it's not that I don't believe in virtual learning, it's just that the in-person learning is a lot better. So I guess my question is, how many days will be my son able to go to in-person classes?
So very good question, Señora Peña, muchísimas gracias. So what I'm going to say is you need to be in touch with your principal because your school community will determine which model they're going to use. In certain school communities, especially with students that receive services like speech therapy, there may be an opportunity to have more days out of the week to have those services than other students because they're prioritized. So again, work very closely with your principal and make sure that they know what your needs are. And then we have an absolutely phenomenal superintendent in Superintendent Rodriguez Rosario who can help and the borough office as well. So again, work closely with your principal. And again, thank you for what you've done. To all of the families in District 9, I just want to say to you, un fuerte abrazo. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being so engaged with our students. We do not forget you. We think about you all the time. And I want to thank you for what you've done. Please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will continue to share as much information that we have in a timely basis with you. I want to thank our Superintendent Rodriguez Rosario, our Executive Superintendent Misha Ross Porter, and our Presidenta Aide Zainos Flores for the opportunity to be here with you. Como ya pueden ver, me están llamando.
To the parents, I dropped my email in the chat and Yadira's information in the chat. So if you have any concerns, don't hesitate to reach out and we will continue to support you.
Thank you very much. Be safe y hasta la próxima.
Thank you all very much for tonight and for being here tonight, and we thank you, and we thank the members of the council for hosting this town hall with us, and we wish everyone a good evening.
Buenas noches a todos. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, District 9 community.